This film was one of the most popular items shown, requested by viewers again and again. Speeded up like this, the Brighton Belle is travelling at something like 750 miles an hour. But what viewers particularly enjoyed seeing was how, at the end of the journey, the passengers stepped out of the train at Brighton as though nothing unusual had happened. Today's Network South East passengers look just as unflustered if their trains arrive on time. Victoria Station, at the height of the morning peak. It's been a bad start to the day, with many trains running late. Commuters react accordingly.
Well, it's been delayed. We had a problem on the up from Brighton, had a problem on the Brighton line.
The train was on time?
No, you're joking. 21 minutes late.
Why?
Didn't hear.
No idea. It was on the Gatwick Express. It was delayed up by about half an hour.
I shouldn't really be running 22 minutes late, paying full fare from Worthing, which is where I started. So I'm fairly unhappy with the service this morning.
What's the most important thing for you? Punctuality or nice clean stations or...?
Punctuality, I would say.
Punctuality mainly.
I think the train getting in on time.
What goes wrong despite everyone's efforts to make trains run on time? Is it equipment, organisation, staff, management, passengers even, or just plain bad luck? Let's keep an open mind on these questions and simply observe some of the things that can and do go wrong. Littlehampton, just after 9 a.m. The next London train is due to leave Victoria at 9:15. Its troubles begin when Wolf Jeans, the traffic supervisor, gets a telephone call.
Traffic Supervisor Littlehampton. Driver Green, number 11 duty, going sick. Sick until further notice. Other than Driver Green, what's the trouble?
The driver's mess room at Littlehampton. By now, the London train should be just about to leave platform 2. Driver Nigel Tippin is rostered for a later train, but Wolf Jeans is obliged to step up.
His trouble, his job, Nigel. I've got a job for you. Go. Driver Green of Bogner's gone sick. So I want you to cover 11 duty.
Bad beer, that's what it is.
Yeah.
What's up with these Bogner blokes?
Don't do enough.
No peace for the wicked, is there?
The driver brings his tea with him to save time and ignores passengers who think he's caused the delay by going to fetch it. Even so, the train is now over 4 minutes late. Once in the cab, the driver finds that a light bulb needs replacing in the route indicator box. Half a minute's work. In all, by the time the train is ready to leave, it's almost 5 minutes late out of Littlehampton. Word of the late departure is passed on to Waterloo Control in London, who inform all stations and depots down the line by telex. The next stop along the coast is Angmering. The guard, Chris Elliott, recognises a woman who needs help to board the train. Angmering station staff are busy collecting tickets. Remembering British Rail's customer care campaign, the guard gets out to help her, but delays the train by 45 seconds. There's a chance to make up time at Worthing, where 6 minutes stop is allowed for the Portsmouth portion to be coupled on. Here's the Portsmouth half arriving now, but it's been delayed by having to stop outside Worthing and wait for the first half. The guard has walked down the platform during the wait. As the two halves of the train are coupled up, the Worthing station staff chat to the waiting guard. By the time he's back in the guard's compartment, another minute and a half has gone by. The Worthing stop overall has added 2.5 minutes to the delay. The train is now 8 minutes late. Now Shoreham. This station is a popular destination for something else that often delays trains. That extra bicycle adds 15 seconds. The train 1H63 is now on the display panel of Three Bridges signal box as it reaches Hove Station. Here, last-minute passengers are hurrying through the barrier. The ticket collector recognises a regular customer and lets him through just as the train is about to leave. It's a friendly action that costs the train another 20 seconds. 1H63 leaves the coastline and branches north towards the main London line. Now, after all the coastline stops, in theory it's 16 minutes of uninterrupted running to Haywards Heath. But around Preston Park, the driver is stopped on a signal. This section, he is informed by a trackside P-Way supervisor, is under an emergency possession so that P-Way engineers can deal with a broken rail. The delay here is quite a serious one, almost 5.5 minutes.
This is your guard speaking. We're sorry for the delay on this service this morning. This is due to operating difficulties. Thank you.
The modern signal box at Three Bridges was opened in 1983 and replaced 36 smaller boxes. Our driver is still not at Haywards Heath. Another red signal has stopped him, one that's not changing.
Hello, signalman. Driver of 1H63.
Hello, driver. We have a track circuit failure ahead of 368 signal. May pass 368 signal at danger. Proceed with caution.
Yeah, so it's OK to pass this one at danger and obey all others.
That failure meant another 5 minutes delay. But now at last there's a clear road ahead and the opportunity to make up some time between here and Gatwick. There's a temporary speed restriction of 40 miles an hour ahead, but the work on the track has been completed ahead of schedule. With normal running restored, the driver is able to make up a minute. At Gatwick, the train enters the territory of the Gatwick Express. Because of its late running, 1H63 has missed its normal turn, and now it must wait to let a Gatwick Express cross in front of it. That takes half a minute. En route again. But now word comes through of a failed train ahead that's blocking the quarry line. Fortunately, there's an easy diversion via Red Hill. But that has added 2 minutes to the run. Three Bridges signal box controls most of the central section of Southern Region. Its panels run all the way from the Hove area to north of Croydon. The driver of 1H63 is again stopped at a red signal and wondering why. A train has appeared on the panel which the signalman cannot immediately identify. By the time this has been dealt with and the train correctly routed, 1H63 has crossed from one man's panel to another, unnoticed until the driver's call.
Hello, driver. Well, I was just making another move that took slightly longer than expected, so I'll clear the signal for you now.
That call to the signal box has added 3.5 minutes to the delay. It's the London suburbs now, but a rough patch of track reported near Wandsworth has to be driven over with extra care. No sign yet of the civil engineers who will attend to it. That's another half minute's delay. The total now is 24.5 minutes. Clapham Junction is the busiest through station of the whole run. The driver has the standard 20 seconds allowed for stopping. If the station staff are not too much distracted by passengers' queries at this complex station, and if no doors are left open, the train could leave promptly. Unfortunately, it's not to be. At Clapham, the train loses a minute and a half. At the Clapham signal box, technicians have been called out to deal with a points failure up the line near Battersea. Clapham to Victoria is normally a 6-minute run, but not today.
This is your guard speaking. I'm sorry for this further delay. This is due to signalling failure in the Battersea area. Thank you.
Victoria is finally in sight after a rapid points repair that nonetheless meant a 5-minute wait. The train pulls in at 11:29, 31 minutes late. Now the driver must immediately change ends to clear the platform and drive the same train back to Littlehampton. He could by now insist on taking a refreshment break, but he and the guard decide against it.
Right, I'll see you later then.
Saving time on the turnaround is likely to recover most of the time lost on the outward run. In this video, we've seen a number of mostly small incidents, all building up to a 31-minute delay. These incidents have been shown to various groups of network staff, and the discussions that arose can be seen in the second Trains on Time video. But what's clear so far is that train punctuality is a complex story that must feature a large cast of railway workers in any effort to improve business performance. Meanwhile, when things go wrong, it's a consoling thought that you can't make everybody unhappy.
We're just on holidays, so it didn't bother us at all. It gave us a chance to see the countryside. Thank you.
Eventually, it arrived at Victoria 31 minutes late. That video, which was quickly nicknamed the disaster video, was then discussed with various groups of Network South East staff, drivers and signalmen, guards and station staff, engineers and managers. The basic question was, what goes wrong, despite everyone's efforts, when trains run late? Is it people, equipment, organisation, or just bad luck? It turned out there was no difficulty in getting comments from railway workers, and some useful insights for everybody, staff and management alike, who has a role in maintaining train punctuality. Sometimes one group of railway workers saw late running as down to another group.
Most drivers prefer to run their trains on time if they can, but when you keep getting stopped at signals unnecessary, it gets a bit frustrating, and you think to yourself, well, they've forgotten me, they must remember me, and you just sit there.
This was the relevant moment from Trains on Time.
Hello, driver. Well, I was just making another move that took slightly longer than expected, so I'll clear the signal for you now.
The signalman in the signal box at Three Bridges, I think it's slackness on their part. I mean, we all think that. I mean, we're so fed up with this business, us getting out of the cab and picking the phone up. You never get a reason why you've been stopped. They just say, wait for a change of aspect, and you look up and it's gone to green.
If you're doing your job properly and you think you're getting on all right, you've made up 3 minutes, and you think to yourself, well, I'm doing quite well, I made up 3 minutes' time. But then you stopped on that signal, and you've lost...
No reason.
For no reason, you've lost that time, and you think, oh, Christ, why bother?
Yeah, you get frustrated.
Why bother?
It's blinkered vision, I'm afraid, is that the drivers, they sit on their train, and they can be held up for, say, 3 or 4 minutes before they come on the telephone to the signal box. And they speak to the signalman, they say, what's the delay? Why are we held here? But what they don't understand is you can be dealing with 20 or 30 trains.
There's no real reason why you should be stopped. I may say with 45 years experience, perhaps 30 years of driving experience, and you look ahead and you can see no particular reason why that signal should be read.
Their next reaction is that they can see the line ahead is clear. So obviously there's nothing wrong in front of them. But it might not be their line. The line you can be dealing with might be 5-6 miles away. So the delay is not obvious to them. And they don't quite believe what you tell them. They just think you've made a mistake, it's human error, Signal's error, and they go away quite happy with the assumption that it's down to us.
A lot of people watching this video might think that the signalmen come out of it whiter than white.
I think what people don't seem to realise is that we are human, and we could start a shift perfectly calm and cool and collected, but after 2 or 3 hours of failures and having people griping at us, grumbling at us with different complaints, we are only human, so we might snap back at, say, drivers and guards when they ask stupid questions, when we could perhaps be a little bit more patient.
A lot of these problems could be overcome if the drivers were to visit them, all the drivers, and see the working of the box and the way we have to work it. We go out riding with them and see their problems. We want them to come up here and see our problems. That would help.
Have you ever visited Three Bridges signal box?
No. I don't know and wish to either.
Why not?
Because I'm so disillusioned with it all.
I've been fortunate in as much as I've been up in both Clapham box and Three Bridges box, and there's no way that I'm going to go into a signal box and tell a signalman how he does his job any more than he can come and tell me how I do my job. But I think you can appreciate the situation about what goes on up there, and I think it's very complex. I think their working is very complex.
The Littlehampton disaster run did in fact begin with a driver reporting sick.
What, sick till further notice? What's the trouble then?
We have some people on our job, haven't we, that are reliable, and there's some that are not reliable. And the ones that ring up and say, I shan't be in today, they're sort of expecting this sort of a call to come. But when you have a sort of, we'll say, a reliable chap who doesn't do it very often, that throws the job in more chaos, I think, because they're not really expecting to cover his turn anyway.
I think this incident shows just how vulnerable we are to any particular member of the staff going sick at short notice. Whereas in some industries it doesn't particularly have any immediate effect on the business when a member of staff goes sick. In our case, when a member of staff is diagrammed or rostered to work a train and he goes sick at the last minute, we just do not have spare people waiting in the sidelines to work that train if he goes sick.
Another moment on the disaster run showed the guard helping an elderly woman.
If you've got an old dear with a bag and a stick, you can't really sort of rush her around the platform and stick her on a train. She ain't going to be too happy, so obviously you've got to take your time and be careful. She's old, you've got to be kind and polite and just put her on the train. You can't really rush her around on wheels or something.
Yes, I can understand why he's helped an old lady, and I can understand that she has paid her fare and she is a customer and she deserves to be treated nicely. But what he's got to remember, the longer he spends helping her, the more delay he causes to the train and all the other people that are sitting on that train. And at certain times, these delays, particularly during the peak periods, can not just affect one train of people, they can affect thousands of people trying to get home of an evening after a hard day at work.
But some staff felt that such help takes so little time and arises so infrequently that there's no real problem.
Some of those things, helping old ladies on and off trains, and that really is down to the looking after the customer. If it delays a train by 15 seconds, for argument's sake, then so be it.
My job is to notify the platform staff that there is a disabled person coming down for a particular train, and it's up to the platform staff whether they hold that train or not. Most times they will do, because we don't get that greater number of disabled passengers.
The fact of the matter is that although some passengers, a lot of passengers, expect care, they expect to be looked after, at the end of the day, the way that we are measured is by our performance, by our punctuality. And I think that all staff in charge of performance must bear that in mind.
So, strike a balance between being helpful and not delaying trains. That's not such an easy judgment. Bikes caused a similar problem. Again, guards felt they had little choice but to help.
You can get on certain trains and you've actually got sort of 5 or 6 bikes. And you've got prams, pushchairs. You've got to sort out what people are going to what station to actually get them off in the right order. You lose several minutes at certain stations with this problem.
Do you find that a bit of a dilemma for you either? Because I know you've had customer care drilled into you, and yet at the same time you must be very aware you're making the train late.
Well, yes, but you can't really sort of say to somebody, you can't come on the train because we're running late. You've got to be kind and let them get on the train and try and sort them out so they've got no problem getting off at the next stop.
Even if it makes the train late?
Even if it makes the train late. That's part of our job.
Another delay arose when a last-minute commuter was allowed through the barrier.
I think stations are a lot of the blame for delays and punctuality. I mean, several of the stations, the terminus stations, they never seem to get you away right on the minute. I mean, they'll keep the barrier open and passengers are still running in, and therefore the train can't leave till, you know, everybody is on board.
I would hate to repeat some of the names we get called because they missed the train. It's just one of those unfortunate things. They come through, they'd say, I was holed up in the book and all. Couldn't get a ticket quick enough.
How passengers can contribute to delay is, as seen here, for example, in the disaster run, by leaving a door open.
We are not supposed to leave stations with the doors on the catch. So therefore, if you've got a conscientious driver, he may get out and decide to go and shut the door. If not, the guard has to come up, say, 6 coaches to close the door. There's another, so you can lose time, hand over fist on occasions like that. Or you just shut your eyes and don't see the door on the catch and things like that. So in some cases, you never get along at all if you went out and closed every door.
It didn't happen in the disaster video, but many railwomen mentioned passengers bunching around their favourite doors.
They all get out the one door. You stand there 5 minutes sometimes, but they all get out the one door. And then the people are waiting to get in the same door. They won't use another door because that door is right opposite the entrance.
Consequently, you've got about a dozen passengers going in one door, and you've got door each side of the door they're going into. They don't use. They will not go into that other door. They must use the door they've been using for years on the same train. Consequences don't matter how much whistling you blow and shouting to the passengers to hurry along, they will not move from that particular door.
If you start blowing a whistle, then very often it's just counterproductive. They take their time more.
Do you think passengers are aware of how they delay trains?
No, I do not. I think to my opinion, they couldn't care less.
At Worthing, the train lost time coupling up with a portion from Portsmouth. Why make trains join up in this way?
It's an economic form of train working which you find on the southern region more than anywhere else on British railways, probably more than anywhere else in the world, I think. But it means that you can have a train from 2 different places running to Worthing, then becoming one train with one driver and one guard for the rest of its journey. Very economical way of serving 2 places with one crew.
What is the solution to the time that the train on the Littlehampton to Victoria run seems to have to lose at Worthing while it waits for the Portsmouth connection?
It's very difficult to find a perfect answer to that. The fact is that if a connection has got to be given, one doesn't want to keep the people on the train that's waiting hanging about any longer than we have to. On the other hand, there needs to be enough minutes to allow for any snags or problems that might arise, so that we try to reach a workable minimum.
The disaster run guard had to make some on-train announcements about the delay.
This is your guard speaking. I'm sorry for this further delay. This is due to signalling failure in the Battersea area.
And that, it seems, can lead to embarrassment.
Sometimes you'll have, say, a signal failure at Three Bridges. The signalman tells you it's one thing via the driver. You tell the passengers. Then you run into East Croydon, they announce something different, which makes you look a right Burke as far as the passengers are concerned.
Staff difficulties or something like
that. And then you get up to London Bridge and it's something yet again. So as soon as you tell one of those passengers what's going on, even if it's the correct reason, they just turn around and call you a liar.
Would it help you more in your job if you did have the right information to give?
Yes, it would.
If you are late at your destination, well, it's usually the driver or the guard gets a stick. I mean, the signalmen are in that box out of sight, so I mean, but they are the instigators of the delay. So, there you go.
Whatever disagreement there may be between drivers and signalmen, we did find one point they agreed on.
One thing would be to make the driver and the guard one unit that they booked on duty, and they stopped with that train, and their duty, every train they work, they both work together. Because when you get problems, you get the driver perhaps comes off somewhere and the guard comes off further down the line.
And this is where it all snowballs, you see, and the crews are out of place. So it is a much better idea for a driver and a guard to work together for, say, for an 8-hour shift or so, you know, then you are crewed up.
Next on the disaster run, a broken rail, the responsibility of the P-Way civil engineers.
If a broken rail is between two stations, one of the stations might be 5 miles apart.
You can be in the middle of a cutting, in the middle of nowhere, see? You've got to trolley out 2 to 3 miles if there's no access point, which means you spend half an hour pushing to site. But once you're on site, the job will only take half an hour, and that's half the time is actually getting there, and materials.
We haven't got machinery. We're normally pushing hand trolleys. So you're talking trolleying for 2 miles, you're talking an hour's trolleying. Well, if we had the machinery, which we can get, the Wickham trolleys, we can be down in 20 minutes.
A herd of cattle that strayed onto the line. Some of the worst jobs fall to the P-Way engineers, who all in all felt somewhat unloved by other departments.
More sort of friendly attitude, I suppose.
Yeah.
Any department in particular?
When I'm afraid, once you get complaints, it's every department's passing the buck. Oh, it's not us, it's not us, it's not us. And it comes down to the P-Way and we've got nobody to turn to. Unfortunately. And it's not always, you know, and don't always tell the truth.
The P-Way are generally pretty demoralised. They feel pretty hard done by. Do you have some kind words of sympathy for them?
No, I think they do a very good job. They're very important members of the railway staff. As everybody, they're a cog in a large wheel, and they do a very good job.
You work very closely with them, don't you?
We work very closely in conjunction with the Permanent Way, yeah.
A track circuit failure, not unexpectedly, featured in the disaster run. Drivers, it seems, feel unhappy about the new signalling systems.
If it rains, it goes wrong. If the sun shines, it goes wrong, doesn't it?
Yeah, if it snows, it goes wrong.
Yeah,
so,
it's
so there's not much left.
Why do these failures occur so often? Why are there always points failures, always track circuit failures?
I think it's some of the equipment gets a vast amount of use and it's not really up to the standard required for such extensive use, and it requires a lot of renewal work. So consequently it breaks down very often in the business period.
So we do get some situations where a failure occurs and we're informed of that failure by the signalman at Three Bridges, but we can't test that certain piece of equipment because of the density of the traffic moving at that time. For argument's sake, if the signalman can't obtain a reverse indication on a pair of points, he's got them back normal, okay, but he won't let us try and reverse, have the points reversed to attend that fault because he needs them normal to allow the traffic to move when it's heavy traffic. So that, again, delays the time that the failure has actually occurred.
And we could get more cooperation from traffic when a failure does occur is by getting the flagman on the signal in good time. Because if he's not there, the driver's got to get out of the train, then ring the box, then get back in the train and goes. But if the flagman's there in good time, he can say to the driver, pass the signal and obey the others and away you go. So they can save time that way.
At the moment, we cover such a vast area with one faulting team. I mean, obviously, the railway feel that they want to cover in this way so they don't have to employ so many staff. But if they had more staff, quite often they would be better covered.
A small delay at the start of the disaster run was caused when the driver had to change a light bulb in the head code indicator. The mechanical engineers at Lovers Walk were divided on how to cope with such minor repairs.
Possibly there should be a maintenance man the engineering side kept at that station, which would be able to see to these jobs so they enable to the driver to go about his business and in that time, or keep to a timetable.
I take the opposite view to that. I think mainly that you can have people sort of hanging around probably most of the day, waiting for something to go wrong, which normally doesn't.
Surprisingly, the new network livery came in for some comment